Welcome back to the Mike Huckabee Show. I'm joined now by my friend Lindsey Graham, Senator from South Carolina. Senator, welcome back. It's good to talk to you again.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You have been very outspoken in the support for what the NSA does in collection of data, outspoken in really disgust at Edward Snowden for leaking the information.
Yeah.
And some of us are having a hard time. Who do we believe?
Okay, good question. Number one, I can understand you not wanting to believe President Obama about much of anything. One, the hypocrisy. He attacked this program unmercifully when Bush started it. So part of the problem is that he is now defending a program that he attacked. The good news for me is that as president, he's beginning a little bit becoming more aware of the world as it is. The IRS scandal has got every American very suspicious and concerned, and me and you both know what went on in Benghazi. So I get it, not trusting the Obama administration. But I think we're at war, Mike. I think we're at war with radical Islamists, and we should be monitoring their phone calls and their emails. And if they do contact somebody in the United States, the only time we can listen to the contents when we get a warrant. And if we took that off the table, we would be far less safe. And I think it is a fair accommodation given the fact that we're at war.
You know, and I agree we're at war. I agree we're at war with radical Islam. But when we have incidences of radical Islam like Fort Hood or Little Rock, this administration doesn't even recognize that is terrorism.
Well, let's look at the program. The only time content, a phone call, can be monitored is when a court order has been issued by an independent judiciary. You know, I'm not asking you to trust the Obama administration. I am trying to ask people to trust that you've got court involved in congressional oversight. But Major Hassan was talking to Anwar Awlaki, who was on the presidential kill list. He was the leader of al-Qaeda in Yemen. He was an American citizen. How did we miss email traffic from a major in the United States Army with the second leading terrorist on the list of terrorists, and we not pick that up? How did we miss that? Bothers me more than the program.
And I've got no problem with monitoring a call that comes from outside the United States into the U.S. or vice versa. But what we understand, and correct if this is not the case, but every phone call made, even domestically, is at least captured as to its origin, its length of time, and to its destination.
Well, Mike, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to match up terrorists who were monitoring their phone calls with any contact inside the United States. Names are not captured, phone numbers are, and there's no right to privacy to your phone number. The Supreme Court ruled in 1971 that a phone bill, a phone number, doesn't fall within the Fourth Amendment. What does fall within the Fourth Amendment is any conversation you have using your phone. So the only time a warrant can be issued, and it has to be based on based on a judicial oversight, is when the intelligence community goes to the FISA court and says, we've got a known terrorist calling this number. We would like to monitor this number and this person. And that's the only way any American can ever have their email looked at or their phone call monitored. And I think that's reasonable. I think when a known terrorist has a phone call being made in the United States, quite frankly, with judicial supervision, I want to know who they're talking to.
If it's a known terrorist, I get that. Now, here's the concern a lot of us have, Lindsey. We've got the instance of the IRS taking confidential information, and I think the word here is they can. Legally, they maybe cannot, but physically, they most certainly can. And I guess the question is, if a 29-year-old contractor can get access to information that he probably was not entitled to, for sure.
Right.
There's 4.8 million people on a security clearance list.
Right.
If one of them goes rogue and decides, you know what, I'm going to check old Lindsey Graham out. I'm going to find out some stuff about him, and he's in an election next year, and I think I'll just turn that over on the internet to WikiLeaks or God knows who. Right. What keeps him from doing that? I know you say the law does, but the law doesn't prevent people from breaking it.
Well, how do you protect content of an American citizen like Lindsey Graham, who's a political figure, from someone in the NSA who is rogue, using it for political purposes, blackmail or whatever you would like? the number of people who actually can trigger the content monitoring is a handful. Snowden doesn't have the ability to go in and have the system follow Lindsey Graham around. The number of people that can do that lawfully and, quite frankly, technically is limited, because if you had, the military is based on a need-to-know basis. You try to limit people's access to information based on a need-to-know for this very reason. I'm very familiar with the way the content is monitored within the NSA, and it does require a court order. I am not worried about a Snowden being able to monitor my phone call. The 50 terrorist plots we've disrupted, including an effort to bomb the New York Stock Exchange, were a directly result of this program being lawfully used, Mike, and we live in a time of great danger. I wish we could have found out Major Hassan was communicating with Anwar al-Awlaki and stopped him before he killed those 19 Americans. I just believe this program does have privacy protections, judicial oversight, and the number of people who can misuse it is very limited. But I'm afraid it may have been compromised already because we've talked so much about it.
The idea that this huge amount of data is being collected, it didn't stop the Sarnev brothers, the shoe bomber, the underwear bomber, the Times Square bomber,
right.
Or Hassan. Are we creating too big a haystack so we'll never find the needle?
Here's the way the program works. That's a really good question. The system failed with the guys in Boston because we didn't detect the fact that they left the country when they were on the terrorist watch list. That's not the NSA surveillance program. But Major Hassan was emailing a known terrorist. How did we miss that? I want to have a hearing on how could a major in the United States Army communicate on the Internet with a known terrorist in Yemen and nobody picks it up. But what we're trying to do is when we capture these phone numbers, when we find a terrorist phone network, when we find out their phone number, we're trying to create a database in the United States that can link up any phone call they make. We don't have names, we just have numbers, and you've got a giant computer out there that can sort of track phone calls coming from Yemen. And without this database, we really limit our ability to make a match.
Well, this is helpful. Frankly, I wish there was more confidence that most of us could have in the government right now. But, I mean, after a series of lies, including the Justice Department not even apparently opening up an investigation in the IRS and not being able to tell members of Congress who's leading the investigation, if the people have been interviewed. Obviously they haven't, because they have said they haven't been. All of this just, I think, gives Americans an extraordinary sense of anxiety. I just hope something can be done to restore trust.
Well, it takes leadership, actually, but put yourself in, I'm not asking you to put yourself in my shoes, but here's my thinking. The IRS scandal is the most unnerving in many ways because it's using the power of the government to suppress political dissent, and I don't believe it was limited to Cincinnati. You and I both believe the administration misled the American people about how the 4 people died in Benghazi. There is ample evidence of this administration passing Obamacare under the cover of darkness, buying off the last vote. But now we're in the national security arena with a program that existed before he became president and has judicial oversight. If there wasn't a judicial check and balance, I'd feel the same way people do about the NSA program. But the reason I'm not jumping on this program and attacking it, because I believe it's necessary, it's legal, and I know it has worked in the past and we need it in the future. And I'm trying to park my general disgust for the administration over in one corner and look at the program based on what's best for the nation.
Well, I appreciate your being here. It's always a pleasure to visit with you, and I hope we can chat again very soon.
Well, thank you, Mike. Radical Islam is on the move. Our friends in Israel are surrounded. Syria is a nightmare. Israel is in the crosshairs of radical regimes with very dangerous weapons. And the chemical weapons in Syria, Mike, I'm afraid will fall in the wrong hands. And if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, we're on the road to Armageddon. Radical Islam is on the rise, and we need to push back and fight, and this administration has really let its guard down.
Lindsey Graham, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Pat.
Senator Lindsey Graham. We'll be right back with Congressman James Sensenbrenner from Wisconsin on the NSA scandal. That's next on The Mike Huckabee Show.